So when I came here, the institution really had been stagnant for over a decade. Enrollment was flat. The finances were pretty dismal, if I'll use that term, because the decision had been made for 10 years to keep tuition probably the lowest of any of the institutions in the state, the idea being that students would come here with low tuition. Well, they didn't come, and all we had really was a fiscal crisis. That was exacerbated by the Texas State Legislature that year that cut budgets by about 10% and cut special items 25%. So basically, ASU was heavily dependent upon special items. So as of September 1st, we transitioned to the Texas Tech University system, and I went to the board and I said, we have to answer the question as to why should a student come here? And one of the issues that we faced was that although we had residence halls, we were really not a residential campus. You could not get a meal on the weekends. There were no student support services. The rec center looked like some high school from the 1950s. So the decision was made, and the Texas system supported it. We began to build a new residence hall, Centennial Village. We worked with our provider to increase and enhance our dining facilities, both aesthetically and in terms of the ability to get food on the weekends. We began to renovate the rec center, so now it is a state-of-the-art rec center than it was then. The library, the same type of thing. We built the library commons. So for that first year, we really began to position the institution so that we would be able to attract students. When we achieved HSI status, it was literally 25.04%. I always joke that we got an extra arm or an elbow or something, but now I believe the numbers are closer to 50%. And I think also the campus has begun to reflect that change in demographic. Again, the Multicultural Center is vibrant. Many of the student organizations, amongst them us, but also I see students, basically throughout all of the organizations on campus. So it's not as if we're saying that's a Hispanic organization, that isn't. Everybody's part of everything, and I think that's the important thing. The other part of the history of the background was, I think, and I haven't put any names on it, but obviously there are several individuals on this campus that were the ones who enabled, if you will, my vision. I mean, being a president is a great opportunity, but you can be a visionary, but at the same time you don't necessarily have the time or the talent to do those sorts of things. So I know I could point to several people on this campus who really brought that vision into fruition, and now I think we're building on that as it becomes more and more built into the entire fabric of the campus as opposed to just an initiative from the president's office. It's always beneficial to see recognition, whether it's financial or otherwise, in your initiatives, and I think we've done very well, many people on this campus, getting the grants, putting them to work, helping the students, not just the Hispanic students, but all the students on the campus. And I think that's one message I would leave everyone with, is that by being an HSI and being able to capture these grants, everyone benefits, not just those students. It's not an isolated benefit.
President Rollo was president at that time, and he returned from a Regents meeting in Lubbock. We were under the Texas Tech system at the time. So he returned from a Regents meeting and called me into his office, and he stated then that they had discussed it at the Regents meeting that Angelo State was very close to becoming an HSI, and that he wanted an effort to try to achieve HSI status. And so I responded, yes sir, we'll work on that. We'll try to get what you want. And so I immediately went to my office and I Googled, what HSI was, because I had no idea what an HSI was at that time. I just heard the initials HSI. And so I Googled it, and at that time, Multicultural Center reported to me. And I had a fantastic staff, Dr. Madero and Lorina, Soza, and Adriana Balcorta, and I think Hope Garza was still there. And I explained to them this is what Dr. Rollo was requesting, and they got to work on it immediately. And of course, the definition would be that you had to have your Hispanic population has to be 25%, and a certain amount of those individuals have to be on financial aid. It was surprising to me. I thought for sure, I think it was 2.3 million or maybe close to $3 million is what we were trying to get, that everyone on campus would be happy with that. And as it turned out, we did receive some pushback from some staff members, including our provost at the time, one of the vice presidents at the time, and also a dean. And I was really surprised. So it became something that we had to convince the university campus, the administration, the rest of them, that we needed to. President Rollo was very supportive, and he said, "You just keep pushing, and let's get that status there, and let's see, let's roll the dice and see what we can do." Again, Dr. Rollo was president, and on his very first day, he called me into his office, and he had a map of the campus laid out on his table there, and he said, "Where's the Multicultural Center?" And I said, "We don't have a Multicultural Center here on campus." And he said, "Well, we're going to have one, and I want you to start it." Again, being general counsel, I wasn't really too familiar with how to start these programs or what even a Multicultural Center was. I mean, I had an idea, but I didn't know specifically what it was. Again, we had programs, mother-daughter programs, some programs like that Dr. Madero was running, and so talked to her about it, and with her and Adriana and all the effort that we had made, we had a little closet. Is what the first Multicultural Center was. I mean, and we had, I think, 4 people in there. We were able to fit 4 folks and even have a little sitting area and a little reception area outside the Multicultural Center. So it's not where it was today. It's really grown since then, and it's a lot better where it is now. But I give Dr. Rollo the credit for at least suggesting that we have a Multicultural Center on his first day when he was here. So again, all the efforts, the Multicultural Center, the HSI grant, all those were Dr. Rollo's ideas, and those are Dr. Rollo's initiatives, and we just, the staff are the ones that made it happen for him.
I first heard about HSI and that term when Joe Munoz came to me and said that he had just gotten this directive from our president at the time, Dr. Rollo, about needing to achieve this HSI status, and what do we need to do to be able to get to that point of 25% Hispanic students. I understood that to mean that we needed to not only look at recruiting students, but also the retention of the ones that we do have. Our natural attrition would set us back a certain percentage as we're trying to reach that 25%. So looked at what do we need to do to recruit the new ones, and it was things like call the admissions office and see who has not registered, who has been accepted that's a Hispanic student but not registered. And we did things like start calling students ourselves. Went back to the Multicultural Center, talked to the staff, and I'm sure they thought I was crazy, but we split up the list and everybody started calling. We knew that we needed to bring those students in. Then it was, okay, what students have applied but not filled out their full application and they're missing, then move on to those students. So recruiting efforts were very grassroots, very personal in terms of the calling the students and finding out why. Why are you not enrolled yet? Why are you not completing your application? That kind of helped to put us over that number. Additionally, we looked at, okay, what do we need to do to retain the ones that we have? And so things like a multicultural center came to be, things like a food pantry. We also used to have a clothes pantry. It was just all these efforts to try to ensure that the experience that the students were having was a positive one so that they would stay and to really serve them. Achieving HSI status was a group effort. We haven't always been an HSI campus, but it's important that we are now. But in order for that to happen, it took the work of people here on campus, the community, the support of staff and faculty, administrators coming forward and saying, we value this and it's important and let's get there. And we did, and here we are.
Once I knew that Angelo State was going to develop a multicultural center, I was beyond excited. Being a person of color, that meant so much to me, and being unrepresented, and having students know that they would see a face that they would recognize. I am a mama bear, and so I knew this would be a place that they could call home. So multicultural being students coming from all over the world, we have such a large, diverse group already, and having a multicultural center would pull in those students who felt that they didn't have a place to call home. And now they would have an anchor with a multicultural center. Ram Pantry, it was a little bit of an underground system that since my parents hosted tons of college students from back home. I knew what it was for students to go hungry. I would see them, they would come into my family's restaurant and my parents would feed them, no question. So I knew this was an opportunity for me to give back, to move forward as well, to teach students that it was okay for them to ask, that they need not be ashamed, that there were people to help. So my husband and I would go to the grocery store and start stashing a little bit of ramen, cup of noodle ramen, some peanut butter cup sandwiches and crackers and tuna and anything that they could walk away and feel that they weren't asking for a handout. So I had it in my little desk drawer because it was a tiny little center. It was actually a closet, but they made it work for us. They made it work for me and for 2 other full-time employees. And as an office coordinator, I was the first person they walked in the door. And I was this crazy Black woman that was always yelling, always joyfully yelling, let me say, but I was always yelling. And so the students would come around the corner and they would hear me and my other co-workers just having this time and not sure what to make of it. And so they would come in and we would sit and get to know these students, and I would see that they were staying longer than the noon hour. And it made me wonder, well, they don't have a place to go. They weren't going to the cafeteria. And I started asking them, are you guys hungry? You know, one student at a time. And so this drawer that I had, I would just say like, hey, you know, if you're hungry, like, you know, I bring stuff to snack on all the time. Just help yourself. Don't even ask, you know, it's just cool. Come, I'll feed you. And so word of mouth, I started getting other students that were finding out about this little tiny drawer. And one day my boss, Joe Munoz, walked in and said, girl, what are you doing? And I thought, oh great, I've been caught, I'm in trouble. I'm gonna get fired for feeding these students because I didn't know the rules on that. So it made me really nervous. And so I said, I have this drawer full of snacks and, you know, takeaway food that students could have. It just warms my heart. So he came around and he looked in my drawer and he says, girl, I can't believe you're doing this for students. So my heart sank because he knew what it was like to know that students were going hungry. So that's how the Ram Pantry got started. He started bringing in also non-perishable items, and then the rest of the employees started it too, and it slowly just grew from there, from what it is today.